Bloodbath is a legendary level in Geometry Dash, and completing it has been on my bucket list for a very long time, though I've never had nearly enough skill to actually beat it. But after I saw Woolsey jump to it from Cataclysm, I wanted to at least try the same thing myself, with my hardest demon being Thanatophobia. So every day for 1 month, I practiced Bloodbath and documented my process, to see just how far I could take this level. This month was absolutely crazy. My name is Irma, and this is A Month with Bloodbath. Enjoy the video. Day 1. Today was a productive start. I mostly practiced the mini ship at 10%, just trying to get consistent, and I did get relatively good at it. I also practiced the slow ball, which wasn't too bad, and the start of Michigan section, which proved to be a bit more tough. The best run of the day was 10 to 28, which I was quite proud of. Total attempts today, 956. Day 2. I really focused on Michigan section on the second day, since it's definitely one of the hardest parts of the level. The only part that really gave me a lot of trouble though was the UFO, and this definitely foreshadowed the entire month ahead. Later in the day, I learned how to do Weo's Ball. The day was overall incredibly productive, with runs of 24 to 37 and 6 to 30. Total attempts today, 1,978. Day 3. My finger was hurting a bit today, probably due to the fact that I did 2,000 attempts the day prior, so I took it a bit slow. I learned 93 to 100 and practiced it a bit, then practiced what I learned before. I managed a handful of complete runs of Michigan section, which felt pretty good. Later in the day, I kind of forgot about the whole slow day idea and started practicing Crack's ship, which is pretty darn difficult. I also learned Evasium's UFO and practiced that. Definitely a big day with over 2,500 attempts. Best runs of the day, 6 to 36 and 38 to 51. Day 4 was a bit busy outside of GD, so only 247 attempts. On day 5, I just spent a long time practicing past sections. I got much more comfortable with Evasium's and Crack sections, and I managed to get a 29 to 51 run. Total attempts today, 1,654. Alright, it's been 5 days so far, so how are things going? Bloodbath was actually going far better than I would have predicted. I felt like I was learning the level really quickly. Maybe that's partially because I put in 1,500 attempts a day on average, which is well over 7,000 total so far. But still, getting this far this quickly really made me feel that I was maybe even capable of beating this level, and that was hugely motivating. My one big problem so far was the UFO part of Michigan section. It felt like no matter how much I practiced it, I just could not get it down consistently, because the timings were just so strict. But I knew I would keep practicing, and we'll see how the next few days went. I put in 1,800 attempts over days 6, 7, and 8, and I managed to learn the rest of the level and get in a bunch of great practice. But that was followed by a super duper busy week, so the 4 days after that were completely devoid of Bloodbath. Day 13 though was a different story. I practiced everything I had learned so far, just trying to get back my consistency since my skills were pretty rusty. I noticed a couple strange things during this day. One was that my timings weren't actually that bad even after 4 days of minimal practice. For example, I wasn't really having trouble with Michigan's Ball or Evasium's UFO. What was suffering, however, was my ship gameplay. It took a while to refamiliarize myself with all of these sections, and it does make sense since a huge percentage of this level's difficulty comes from the ship. One other annoying thing today was that my finger was getting pretty tired much faster than usual. This was especially frustrating when I was trying to practice Crack's ship, since there's so many fast little precise clicks and my finger just wasn't up to the task. However, this day took a turn. As I kept practicing, I started getting better. I got back to the level of consistency I was at before my break, but then I kept on improving. I started to pass Crack's ship much more often. At one point, I passed it 3 times within a minute 30 seconds. This day started out as demotivating, but after this success, I was more pumped than ever. I still didn't really think I would beat Bloodbath during this month, but I was optimistic that one day soon it would be within my grasp. Best runs of the day, 29 to 61 and 42 to 77 times 2. Total attempts today, 1,223. My motivation was higher than ever, and so I wanted to do something drastic. My next goal was to get a run from 24 to 74. That's 50% of the entire level. Let's see what happened. I felt hopeful. I was getting to crack section not too infrequently, so it was only a matter of time before I got the run. However, there was one part that was holding back my progress. The UFO in Michigan section had always been tough for me, but today it was feeling more and more frustrating. Runs that got past this UFO were few and far between, which was super demotivating. I considered changing the run so that I would start just after the UFO, but then I realized, if this UFO was posing so much of a challenge then, what would it be like when I started to play from zero? I needed the practice, so I just kept at it. By the end of the day, I had sunk about 600 attempts into just this one run, and none of them were successful. But tomorrow was a new day, so I would just see how that went. Best run of the day, 24 to 52. Total attempts of the day, 823. The next few days were super busy for me, but the big calculus test I was spending a bunch of time studying for was finally over, so hopefully I would have more time to devote to Bloodbath. On to day 19. I started off with Michigan section today, but as I practiced, something hit me. I realized that I did in fact have free time throughout the past couple days. I just chose not to spend it on Bloodbath. I realized that my initial drive to practice the level had faded, and so I was kind of forcing myself to play it despite not actually really wanting to. So I decided to try something else. Instead of practicing different sections and such as I did in the past, I would start playing from zero. Playing from zero was a very different experience than playing from a start position. First of all, the beginning kept killing me, like a lot. This one specific spike is so bad, I think it's the only reason why Bloodbath is an extreme demon. But more importantly, it felt much more real. Like, wow, I'm actually practicing the legendary extreme demon Bloodbath. Despite my motivation falling in recent times, I was able to get a few hundred attempts here in one sitting, and I began to get slightly more consistent. In fact, after a while, this happened. I also practiced from 6% and I got a 6 to 41 run, which was awesome. The day ended and I had 621 more attempts under my belt. Day 20. Due to the fact that I stayed up until 4 AM playing Minecraft the night before, I was pretty tired today. I started to practice Bloodbath in the evening, but my finger tired pretty quickly and I just wasn't feeling it. For some reason though, I kept playing, practicing crack section, because that's one of my really tough spots in the level. I was just kind of playing mindlessly, thinking about school and other things, and before I knew it, I got this run. "42 to 83, from crack to havoc." I don't know how this happened, but practice evidently paid off. Later this day, I put a bunch of practice into havoc and Giron, and got as consistent as I could, and then went back to playing from 75, trying to get a 75 to 100 run, but I just couldn't do it. Oh well. On the bright side, I did get a 70 to 100 run. That was the start of Etzer all the way to the end of the level, which was super promising. I spent 838 attempts on Bloodbath today, and it was totally worth it. Once again, my motivation was high. I was having fun with the level again, and I was super pleased with my progress. Now, let's see what happened on the final 10 days of the month of Bloodbath. I decided to take a step back and look at the level from afar. Obviously, Bloodbath is a very difficult level. but I've put over 10,000 attempts into it, so it wasn't as scary as it once was. After everything I've done, there were only 3 sections that still gave me a large amount of trouble. The first was Michigan section, specifically the UFO. I practiced this UFO so much, but I just couldn't get it down consistently. The clicks were just so tight, more so than any other part of the level. I was afraid of it, but I hoped that more practice would help out at least a little bit. Next was Crack section. This part is the climax of Bloodbath. Fast, intense, and difficult. The good thing was, it seems that after long practice sessions of the ship, it got much more consistent, so hopefully I could leverage that. We would just have to wait and see. The last part that gave me a lot of trouble was Etzer's ship. Parts of it just didn't feel very consistent, and I found that I died to the blue orbs quite often. The straight fly at the end wasn't very scary, luckily, so once I got there I could usually manage. I was almost certainly going to die there at least once in normal mode, but hopefully I could minimize that chance as much as I could. I also knew that I was going to have to practice Havoc's UFO to 100 a lot. These are some of the easier parts of the level, but my nerves were going to be so high whenever I got there in normal mode. My hands tend to shake when I get far in hard levels, so I wanted to be as comfortable with 80 to 100 as possible. So here we go with the final 10 days. Day 21. That's right, I got a run from 33 to 79, which makes up 46% of the level. I was super proud of myself, and for good reason. I was making awesome progress. I felt much more comfortable with Crack's ship section, which means my only trouble spots left were Michigan's UFO and Etzer's ship. I decided to tackle Etzer first. Again, it's near the end of the level, so I couldn't risk being inconsistent. This little practice session went pretty well. I still needed to train more here, but I managed to get a few 75 to 100 runs, which just the day before was very difficult to achieve. For the rest of the day, I played from 29, right before Michigan's UFO. If I could get this part down, it would be relatively smooth sailing from there. I like to think that after this practice session, I got more comfortable with the UFO, but since I couldn't really tell, I would just have to hope. I also decided on what I wanted my final goal for this month to be. By day 30, I wanted to have a 42 to 100 run of Bloodbath. That's right, from Crack's section all the way to the end. I honestly thought that this was attainable, and I was gonna fight for it. 1,210 attempts down today, let's see what tomorrow would bring. Day 22. Today, I started going for the run. Needless to say, I wasn't quite there yet, but I was certainly getting close, and I was sure that I would get there with a bit more time. I tried playing from 50 as well, and at one point I managed to get a 50 to 94 run, which was super cool. Total attempts today, 893. Day 23. This was a practice day. I practiced a lot of Asonic, Etzer, Giron, and G-Boy, but later in the day when I tried to go for longer runs, my finger just didn't feel warmed up and I couldn't play well. My straight flying was especially horrendous. So I decided to take the rest of the day off to focus on editing a different video. Day 24. That's right, with 6 days to spare, I got the 42 to 100 run. After this, I felt much more comfortable with all of these gameplay sections, especially Asonic and Giron. Etzer's ship was still giving me a lot of trouble, but I hoped I would get better at it over time, or maybe I would just fluke it a bunch while playing in normal mode. I was incredibly pleased with this achievement, but I wasn't sure where to go next. Later that day, I practiced Vermilion section, especially the slow ball, because it had been a while and I was rusty. No good runs today or anything, but it was still productive. Well over 1500 attempts today. Day 25. Today was another down day. I had relatives over, so I couldn't really spend a bunch of time on the level. I practiced Vermilion's ball section a bit more and tried to go for another 42 to 100 run. I got to Etzer's section fairly often, but his ship section killed me a bunch, so the run didn't happen again today. Day 26. I focused on early parts of the level today, since I already had a bunch of practice with 42 and onwards. Etzer's ship was still an issue, but I would tackle that later. I specifically practiced from 6% onwards. I got a 6 to 42 run, which was pretty nice, but I just didn't feel consistent at Vermilion section. Only 467 attempts for the past 2 days. Day 27. The month was wrapping up, but today was super hectic, so unfortunately I couldn't really play at all. Day 28. There were 3 days left in the month, and they started out really well. On day 28, I got a second 42 to 100 run of Bloodbath, not even that long into my practice session. Etzer's ship killed me twice before I got the run, but that's no big deal, I could always practice it more later. I then spent a long time practicing Vermilion section, especially the slow ball, since I became pretty inconsistent at it over time. I got to the point where I was getting from the beginning of the ball to Michigan on a vast majority of attempts, so I moved on to practicing Michigan. I spent 40 minutes straight today playing from 24. This section still made me feel demotivated, especially that UFO. Those 4 clicks are easily the hardest part of the level for me, but I got better. Not consistent, but better. And I was able to close out my practice session with a 24 to 78 run. Of course, it was Etzer's ship that killed me. After over 1,000 attempts, I called this day a success. Day 29. Today, I started playing from 29. Starting from Michigan's UFO, I was going to go for a 29 to 100 run. I actually did much better with this than I thought I would. I was getting to Crack's ship section somewhat consistently, and a couple times I got as far as Etzer's part, but this practice really wore out my finger, so I had to call it quits sooner than I would have liked. I still wanted to be productive though, so I actually started recording and editing this video. Probably should have started that sooner, but what can I say, I'm a procrastinator. We are down to our last day, the final day in my ambitious month with Bloodbath. What glorious fate shall behold these sacred 24 hours? Well, I think it's just about time that we find out. As much as I would love to say that I put in 10,000 attempts today and got every run imaginable on this level, I'm sad to say that I was pretty swamped with schoolwork and only managed to put in a couple hundred attempts practicing various parts of Bloodbath. But the month being over doesn't mean that the journey has come to its end. No, this is just a turning point. Because now that I've successfully learned and practiced the level, I want to beat it. And I'm gonna do so live. Starting Wednesday, May 26th at 5 PM Eastern Time, I'm going to be playing Bloodbath from zero on stream. If you want to be there when it happens, make sure to subscribe to my channel. And hey, while you're at it, why not leave a like on this video if you've made it this far? This video took more work than any other on my channel to make, so any interaction is greatly appreciated. Also, I have a Twitter, so go follow me there. There will also be a link to my Discord server in the description. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. This has been a month of Bloodbath. I'll see you all in my next video.